Hi, this is the first full day of the Women for America Summit, and our second speaker will be coming up shortly.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders was bred into politics. She's the daughter of former Arkansas governor and two-time presidential candidate Mike Huckabee. She served as field director for her father's 2002 gubernatorial re-election campaign, was the national political director for his 2008 presidential campaign, and headed his 26th presidential bid. Quote, I will always say that when most kids are 7 or 8 years old, out jumping rope, she was sitting at the kitchen table listening to political commentators analyze poll results. That was Huckabee. Her work on several Republican politicians' campaigns landed her on Time's 40 Under 40 list in 2010. And you must have been like 25 at that time, right? In her Time interview, Sanders called her father her political inspiration. She has done amazing work on behalf of this president and his agenda.
Yeah!
Our chairwoman, Amy Kramer, has a small gift that we would like to give her. Amy?
Love you, Sarah. We just want to thank Sarah for being here. We know she is very busy and she has to corral the kids, not her own kids, but other kids. But we want to give her the small gift so that next time there's no question about who's baked the pie. It's a great Made with Love by Sarah.
Actually, we picked a slow news day for this to happen. So
Right.
we'll keep this incredibly short because I have to get back. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much to all of you, particularly for the very warm welcome. That's pretty rare. I'd like to start every morning if I could, stopping by here. It would probably be a little bit different than what I'm used to, and certainly far more welcome than the crowds I usually go into. So thank you so much for the work that you do. There are several people I know that you will be hearing from over the next several hours, some more visible in the work that we're all working towards together. I see a few very familiar faces out in the crowd, and you guys will see all of us on TV, but the work that we do, just because it's more out front, is certainly not as important or more important than all of the work that each of you do every single day, supporting this president, defending this president, helping this president, and pushing for the agenda that he laid out during the campaign that he's been delivering on since he was elected.
Amen.
I'm often asked, how do I do this? Why do I do this? For me, it's really simple. One, I believe in what we're doing, and two, I have 3 kids. The most important title I'll ever hold will be that of mom versus anything else I ever do.
Woo!
And I want to set a good example for my kids.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure we're doing everything we can to make sure that our country is the same one that we grew up in. And I'm extremally proud of the work that this president has done. My kids are also the best preparation that I could possibly have for the job that I had. You joked about corralling the kids. My kids are 6, 5, and 3. And so I'm used to answering the same question over and over again. And I'm used to saying no. So they also have tested me in ways that I wasn't sure that anything could ever really fully test your patience in, which is great preparation. So my son Huck, who's my middle child, who will be 5 in about a week and a half, when he was 4, we had Bring Your Kid to Work Day. And I debated, is he big enough? Most of the kids coming were going to be 7, 8, a little bit older. And I was like, he's going to be one of the youngest ones there. And he's a little bit of a wild card anyway. But, I mean, what did I expect? I named the kid Huck. So, I debated and I decided ultimately, how many times do you get to bring your kid to work day? And it's at the White House. So I was going to take full advantage of taking him with me. He had done great all day. He'd been a perfect angel, and we'd had a really good day. We were getting ready to do a big group photo with the president. All the kids were going to meet out in the Rose Garden, and we'd invited the press kids as well as all of the White House staff kids. So I had gone into the Oval to brief the president and let him know, sir, you're going to walk out, you're going to be with hundreds of kids, a mix of both White House staff and press staff, and a reminder that the parents will be a mix of reporters and press staff. And as I'm walking him through this, I look out the window and we see the bushes in the Rose Garden just start to violently shake. Thinking, we're both a little confused, and we look over, and about that time I see a little blonde head pop up and charge for the glass of the Oval Office. And he has his hands up like this and his face pressed to the glass. And the president's a little taken aback and goes, there's a little boy looking into the Oval Office. And I said, yes, sir, that's my son, Huck.
That's Huck.
If only that was the only embarrassing moment that Huck had caused for me. Just a couple of weeks after that, I'd accidentally left my phone out, which I've learned not to ever do again. And Huck somehow managed to pick it up, and in his perfect 4-year-old mind, popped out a few emojis and managed to tweet them on my official press secretary account.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Thankfully, it could have been a lot worse because he's a 4-year-old boy, and there are a lot of emojis that they find really funny that the rest of the world probably wouldn't have. But thankfully, he stuck with bridges, stoplights, trains, and ships. I didn't know what was going on. I received, my phone started getting all these calls and emails asking what I was saying. What is this I'm sending? It took me a few minutes to figure it out, and I realized that Huck had managed to put this tweet out. It's still one of the best performing tweets I've ever had. And normally, I should have been mad at him, but it happened to be Infrastructure Week. So I was extremely proud because at an early age he was already disciplined and on message. So again, I just want to say thank you so much for all of the work you do. I'm so incredibly proud to be here and to be with each of you and to be part of such an incredible movement that this president started just a few short years ago. And we're seeing the culmination of that. And hopefully just a few minutes we'll see one of the more impactful things that he will ever do, and that's to completely reshape the judiciary in the way that
Yes. Amen. Oh, Kavanaugh.
I can't thank you enough for all of the things that each of you do, and for the time and the hours that you spend putting into supporting this president and helping this president and defending him and making sure that the rest of us know that there are others out there that think like we do, feel like we do, and are talking about it in such a public way. So thank you so much for everything. Sorry to run out. I got to get back for the vote. But again, from the bottom of my heart and certainly on behalf of the president, we thank you for everything that you're doing. Thanks so much.
Love you. Thank you, Sarah.
Anytime over the weekend. She's amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah. We are going to move forward. We are very lucky. We have a very important, or we have our first look at a book that has not been released yet. And we have the author here. We're going to have a discussion with Sebastian Gorka. His new book, Why We Fight, Defeating America's Enemies. If you haven't already picked it up, you will be getting it before you leave, and he will be doing a book signing after this conversation. But I just want to give him a little introduction so you know a little bit more about him. We see him on TV all the time fighting. But Sebastian Gorka is a PhD in internationally recognized authority on national security, strategy, and counterterrorism, and author of the New York Times bestseller, Defeating Jihad. Holds a Major General Matthew C. Horner Distinguished Chair of Military Theory at the Marine Corps University. He's a regular lecturer for U.S. Special Operations Command, the FBI's Counterterrorism Division, and the Green Berets. And he's briefed the CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and the National Intelligence Council. A Breitbart News contributor and frequent guest on the Fox networks, as well as the BBC, CNN, Sky News. Dr. Gorka is the chairman of the Threat Knowledge Group and a recipient of the Joint Civilian Service Commendation Award awarded by U.S. Special Operations Command. Let's welcome Sebastian Gorka. Let's have a seat over here. Did you all get your book?
Hello. The books are outside, don't worry.
And he's going to do a signing afterwards. Why We Fight, Defeating America's Enemies with No Apologies. It's released this coming Tuesday, right?
Tuesday, indeed.
So we have first look. You're going to be busy this weekend. Why do we fight?
Because America is the greatest nation on God's earth. And because for 40 years, we've let those who wish to destroy the Republic take control of America. Whether it's the media, whether it's Washington, D.C., whether it's politics, whether it's academia, we let them take control. I mean, think about it. We're all very happy that Donald Trump is the president. But let's remind ourselves what happened in the 8 years prior to that delightful November evening when he won. We had a world on fire. I'm a national security guy, so let's start with the externals. When President Obama began his shameful, disgraceful two-term presidency, he began it with what? With an apology tour. He traveled the world apologizing for America. Then he withdrew from the world. This sounds like some kind of SNL skit when SNL was funny, but he actually elevated into the US national security strategy the concept of leading from behind, which is an oxymoron, right? You can't do anything from behind except follow. So when America retracts from the world, what happens? Russia invades Ukraine. A small Al-Qaeda affiliate in Iraq creates a caliphate. The first time ever since 1928, there's an Islamic, theocratic, globalist caliphate created. China starts to build fake islands in the South China Sea to build military bases on them. North Korea proceeds to launch ballistic missiles over the Sea of Japan. This is the price we paid for 8 years. Just one metric. One metric. When President Obama left office, we had 65 million refugees in the world. We had less refugees in the world in 1945 after 6 years of World War II. This is what Donald Trump inherited. Donald Trump isn't a neoconservative. He's not interested in invading other people's countries and occupying them. But he knows that without American leadership, the world is dangerous. But it's okay, because America's back.
I've always said that if someone declares war on you, you're at war whether you want to be or not, right? Absolutely. Where is the main area we need to dedicate more resources and why? And what ally country that has more resources should be helping us more?
Great. So the second part, who should be helping us more? It is absolutely delightful to watch the president in action, especially behind closed doors, because he asks very simple questions. He asks, I won't mention specific countries, but he says, why are we paying for the defense of a country as rich as X? Okay? A certain country has a missile system that protects them from bad people, which is good. But when the president finds out that we're paying for it, when they're one of the richest countries in the world, he says, how does that make sense? Donald Trump's election to the 45th presidency is what I call the revenge of common sense. And whether it's NATO, which for 30 years has suffered from something called the freeloader complex, where the majority of NATO nations do not even keep the promises they make to defend themselves, or whether it's other nations that we provide the defense to in Asia or elsewhere, it's about time that they acted like our friends and they acted seriously. So Donald Trump is rejigging that relationship for the betterment of that relationship and for the American taxpayer. When it comes to the biggest threats, this is the theme. My book has two themes. So Why We Fight is about the threats we face. My first book, Defeating Jihad, was about jihadism, so ISIS, Al-Qaeda. This is the whole thing. So Why We Fight is about all the threats we face. China, Iran, Russia, jihadism. Melded with a very simple message, and that's where the title comes from. You have to want to win. Okay? It's not enough to have the nicest toys, the biggest budget. If you don't have the will to win, you will lose. Look at Vietnam. The most powerful nation in the world goes to war with a bunch of guys with sharpened wooden sticks. And who wins? The bad guys. Why? Because they had a will to win, and we didn't, because we allowed the left to undermine our military during the Vietnam War. I mean, you remember the images. Draftees coming home to America being spat on by fellow Americans. You can't win a war when you allow the left to defeat you back home. So, what are the biggest threats today? I came into the White House, as Bill O'Reilly called me the National Security Utility Infielder. I guess that's a sporting term. I played rugby, so I have no idea. Yeah, I know. And despite that, I focused on counterterrorism mostly. But once you're in the building, once you've got the clearances, once you read the classified reports, the scales fall from your eyes. And I realized very rapidly, as did the president, that we'll deal with ISIS, and we have. We've crushed the caliphate. It doesn't exist. We'll deal with Iran, we'll deal with North Korea, we'll put Russia back in its box. But there's only one strategic level threat we face. No, I'm talking about international. And that's China. I don't want to get technical here, read the book, but just go to your search engine and plug in One Belt, One Road. One Belt, One Road is the Chinese strategy to displace America by the 100th anniversary of their revolution, 2049. It's not classified, you can read it right now. They have a plan to become the most powerful nation in the world and to kick us into the dustbin. That's the reality. And for the last 30 years, ever since the incredibly short-sighted decisions by Kissinger and others to normalize relations with China, to allow them into the WTO, to give the most favored nation status, we have been complicit in the rise of a China that wants to destroy us. And they have a plan, and they have the will. But it's okay, because Donald Trump's the commander-in-chief.
Random question, when and where did you meet the president for the first time?
It's actually the postscript of the book. So people always love the personal stuff. You can write as much as you want about jihadis and China and blah, 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 and they want the personal stories. My first book was about jihadis, but the first chapter was about my father suffering under fascism and then communism, and being arrested, tortured by the secret police, put in a communist prison. And when anybody's ever read the book and meets me, all they want to talk about is my dad and that chapter. So there's, it's the personal stories that I guess resonate. With regards to the president, summer 2015, I'm a professor in Quantico. I'm teaching Marines at Marine Corps University. And I get a phone call from somebody called Corey Lewandowski. No idea who Corey is, and he says, I'm campaign manager for candidate Donald Trump. Would you be willing to meet him? Because he's got to prep for this big debate in the fall on national security. And I said, sure. So I flew to New York, met with the Donald, and it was just the three of us in his office in Trump Tower. He was as close to me as you are, Donald Trump by his desk, and then Corey in the corner, had this amazing blue sky discussion on national security, from the Civil War to ISIS to nuclear weapons, you name it. And then he does a classic Trumpism. Halfway through the conversation, he kills the conversation, looks to Corey and goes, I like this guy, let's hire him. That's Donald Trump. Yes, I mean, he's a man's man, and he's decisive. When he knows what he wants, he does it. And so I became an advisor to the Trump Organization, prepped him for his debates. And it wasn't a hard decision to do, ladies. Why? Because within milliseconds of meeting him, what did I know about him? I knew two things. Number one, this man is the kryptonite to political correctness. He hates political correctness with a passion. And after 8 years of Obama, wow, was that refreshing. And secondly, as we discussed ISIS and the other threats we face, I realized this is a man who not only knows we are at war, he doesn't deny that, he knows we are at war, but much more importantly, he wants to win that.
So Sebastian, in your book, you talk about how we won the Cold War without firing a shot. Do you think the progressive left has a similar plan? And if so, how do you propose we counter them? And you mentioned knowing your enemy. Is the progressive left a fifth column in this war?
Wow, great questions. Wow. Do they want to win without firing a shot? I don't know, because I'll mention one name. Hands up, those of you, a little bit of a test here. Who knows who James Hodgkinson is? Hands up. 1, 2 people. That's not good, ladies, not good. James Hodgkinson is a name that you should help make common knowledge across all the 325 million people in America. All of them should know who he is. Why? Because James Hodgkinson, a year ago, just over a year ago, just a few miles from where we are sitting, in a baseball field with a rifle and a handgun, tried to kill not only Steve Scalise, but every Republican on that baseball field. And when those 2 Capitol Police officers killed him, what did they find on his body? A hit list of all the Republican congressmen, not Democrats, only Republican congressmen that he wanted to assassinate. And that man was a Bernie Sanders volunteer. If you look at Antifa, if you look at the violence on the streets against Donald Trump on the inauguration day, when a car was burnt, a limousine belonging to a Muslim immigrant to the United States, a limo driver, was burnt. Here, just a couple of blocks from this hotel. It's very easy to come to one conclusion. Violence has been normalized within the political discourse in America, but only by one side, by the Democrat Party. When Maxine Waters calls for the abuse and intimidation of members of this cabinet, female members like the lady, the incredible lady who just spoke here, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, calls for their intimidation. If they're pumping gas at a gas station, get up and in their face and intimidate them. That's un-American. That's how you get to the violence of James Hodgkinson. So, will it get worse? I don't know. But I'm pretty confident, because if there's a civil war, who do you think is going to win? Not the guys who are afraid of guns because they're the wrong color, okay? So, seriously though, this is a problem. Are there a fifth column? I just look at the Kavanaugh.
Small space. Face near bottom right edge.
I just look at the Kavanaugh hearings. And it's not a question anymore. It's not a question. The left
One space.
has
Small
a
space. Face near
plan
bottom
to
edge.
destroy every wholesome institution of Judeo-Christian civilization. They've done it with our schools, with the media, and now they've done it. Think about this. They've done this with the process for selecting an associate justice in the highest court of law. They destroy the Senate process. When a man who has walked the earth for more than 50 years with a spotless record. He's not just a Boy Scout, and it's not Brett, if you're listening, it's not an insult. He's a boring Boy Scout, okay? He is a completely middle-of-the-road, milquetoast Boy Scout. And within the space of 11 days, he goes from being a Boy Scout to being a serial rapist who attempted murder in high school. You realize there is no weapon they will not deploy. And the message to all of you is you need to send a very clear message, not just to your brothers or sons or husbands, but to every human being in this country. If they will do this to Brett Kavanaugh, they will do it to anybody, you included. If you get in the way of the Democrats, you are treated like a subhuman.
I don't want you to hold back now.
I'm not going to try retiring, but
So tell us what you read, watch, and listen to.
Great question. Again, I don't know if we didn't even rehearse this, but a great question. It's the last chapter in the book, just how I know what I know and what I follow and what I'm interested in. So I grew up in the 70s and 80s in the UK. I'm a huge talk news, radio talk show junkie. As a kid, I used to have a cheesy little transistor radio under my pillow, and until the wee hours, I listened to talk radio. I get most of my news not even from the internet. I don't buy newspapers. I mean, really, newspapers? Are you joking? I mean, the Washington Post, New York Slimes. No. I get most of my information from the radio. There's a couple of amazing shows, Salem Radio Network, Dennis Prager, Mike Gallagher. Here in DC, Chris Clark keeps us sane in the morning, and then Larry O'Connor in the afternoon. So again, I love to drive, I love to listen to radio. A couple of websites I love, of course, Breitbart, Daily Caller, Daily Wire, The Federalist. These are superbly reliable sources. And then a bit of advice I give to people who are coming up in the field. Don't focus less on organizations. I mean, I love the Heritage Foundation. I love the work done by Daily Signal. But institutions are less important than individuals. Find people who are trustworthy, whose reportage, let's mention a couple of names, Sarah Carter, superb at Fox, Molly Hemingway at The Federalist, people who always knock it out of the park, follow them. Find a few institutions that are solid, but then follow individuals, and then, this should be obvious to everybody here, read these things called books.
CBS News. Now, ahead of a key procedural vote on Judge Brett Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court, senators are making their closing
90% of
argument.
internet users, when they punch in a search on whatever search engine they use, 90% don't go past page 1 of the hits. And you know who decides who goes on page 1? Google decides what goes on page 1 of your hits. So you're actually being fed what they wish you to read. So books, classics, read. Always, it's tough today, I know. Everybody's addicted to their phone and the computer, but it's highly advisable if you want to maintain your sanity. Every day, switch off the phone for an hour, unplug, read a book.
I'm
And
gonna
of course, Sean Hannity. Tucker Carlson, Lou Dobbs, Maria Bartiromo, Trish Reagan, all my Fox friends.
Do you mind if we open it up for a few questions?
I would love it. That's always the most fun thing. So questions, please. I thought this was women for Trump.
We love men too, and men that love women.
All right. We love men too. Go ahead.
Question, we're talking about the progressive left and what they're doing to our country. How do you cut the head off the Hydra so the funding
Yeah, so how do you cut the funding? How do you cut the head of the Hydra, George Soros, everything else? I get this question all the time. Why isn't he in prison? Guys, most of what he does, most of it, is totally legal. Okay, so you got to cool your jets for a second and not be like them. They put people in prison for political reasons, right? Look at the filmmaker after the Benghazi disaster. He had to take the hit for the dead, so they put him in prison. We don't do that to our political enemies. So he may have a lot of money, but okay, he can fund whoever he wants to fund that. So we've got to be smart. We've got to stick to our principles. So I believe he may be considered by many the Darth Vader of the right, but Steve Bannon is absolutely right. In many cases, and in many races right now, money is actually making you vulnerable. When they see, when the American people see the millions being spent on evil things, it gives you a feeling in your gut, and you say that's wrong. When they see how these people are behaving with regards to Judge Kavanaugh, when you see people, going to demonstrations with bags of urine to throw on the police horses, right? And when you see that somebody's funding that, the average American goes, hey, that's wrong. So do a little bit of jujitsu and use the money against them, because what they're supporting is so utterly, utterly offensive. What can you do? And this is a personal cri de coeur, this is a request to all of you. I'm sure you're all doing this right now, but in the next 31 days, I want you going to overdrive. I want you going to, put it into fifth gear. Every single person, I don't care how old you are, I don't care how much of a technological Luddite you deem yourselves to be, you must be a social media warrior. I spend far too much time on social media, hours every day. It drives my wife nuts, but we're all warriors, and we have to do it. There is a reason the president has 54 million Twitter followers. There's a reason. Why? Because he is speaking to the American people, jumping over the lying heads of the mainstream lying news complex. So be a part of that. Be what the military calls a force multiplier. If you don't have a Facebook or YouTube, Facebook or Twitter or Instagram account, by midnight tonight, I want you to have one. And I know people who can check, right? So do it. Retweet the president, comment, get out there. And beyond that, outside of social media, when you meet somebody who, I think the last 14 days have been incredible. Because if you talk to your friends, if you just go on social media, the anger is palpable. And the anger isn't just from people like me who've been on the MAGA train since the beginning. The anger is coming from people who never even dreamt they'd vote for Donald Trump, who I think in a month's time are going to vote Republican. So there are a lot of people who are shifting over to reality, who are shifting over to our side. And for those people in the last few weeks who are on the fence or undecided, when you meet them at the barbecue, at the playground, wherever, the water cooler, ask them a very simple question. Ask them two questions. Number one, what do you think of the last 2 years? Are you happy that your 401k is now 30% up? Are you happy that your brother-in-law got out of your basement and has a job now? I mean, if you like the last 2 years, how about another 6? Right? And then another 8 to break the fence. Right? So it's a very simple question to elicit the right answer that we need, and it may push them over the fence to vote Republican. And secondly, and this is a new question, ask them what they thought about how Judge Kavanaugh was treated. And what do they think they would do if that was their brother or their husband or their son? People who said, oh, he didn't behave like a judge. He behaved like a judge for 31 hours while he was grilled in his confirmation hearings. Then, a week ago, he behaved like a man wronged. That's how he behaved. If he had responded to the calumny of being accused of being a serial rapist the way he did, you know he would have been lying or a robot. He did what any righteous man would have done in his position. Ask them what they think of that. Somebody else.
Hi,
Hi.
Peggy Schneider with Boca Raton, Florida. After Kavanaugh and after the election, do you think there are going to be any indictments for perjury or treason, for instance, for Kerry, for Hillary, for any of this that's going on?
Yeah, I don't think treason, you have to be actually actively supporting an enemy, and usually it's used in wartime, so I don't think treason is...
Doesn't Kerry do that?
You know, we're not technically at war with Iran, so no. Sedition is different. Sedition is different. And, you know, the Logan Act, I mean, he's guilty. If the Logan Act, is that if anybody's ever to be prosecuted on the Logan Act, it's John Kerry. I mean, he is going around, he's doing end runs as a private citizen around the Secretary of State and the President. And he's working with, to this day, well, the State Department, even when he was in office, he's assisting what our State Department has registered as the largest sponsor of state terrorism. So sedition, Logan Act, absolutely. With regards to perjury and other potential charges and convictions, I don't know. I keep getting told by Americans who are born here, I am American by choice, okay? I chose this great nation. I get told by Americans who are born here that, oh, you can't convict a Hillary, you can't convict a cabinet member or a former first lady, it's not in our culture. And my response is, why? I mean, that's what? It may be not in the culture of Venezuela, but we're not Venezuela. So the question is, do we believe that Lady Justice is blindfolded for a reason or not? If you've got the right last name, does that mean you get a pass? I don't know if it's going to raise the cabinet level. With regards to perjury in front of Congress, I'll tell you something. Those Republican senators, when they gave their press conference yesterday, I have never seen the establishment Republican Party that angry. The senators are fuming about how they have been wrong. Not just Kavanaugh, they have been wrong. So who knows? Perjury charges, maybe. With regards to everything that's gone on in the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, I'm pretty confident it's tough for us, but you have to be patient, take a deep breath, count to 10. We don't have kangaroo courts on the right, give it due process. I have faith that before the president leaves office, senior political appointees, I don't know if it's cabinet level, but senior political appointees of the Obama administration will be charged with felonies. Hi.
I live in Silicon Valley. Whew. And I was looking at, we have an internet bill of rights. We do not feel safe. My kids go to school with a lot of the big tech leaders. And my daughter on election day, she put a MAGA hat on while they told everybody else to dress in black. And they made her remove it. And I said, you walk across that campus and you leave, when she didn't go back for 2.5 days because they didn't call. Exciting though, she is the class president this year.
Wow.
So I think, and it's her against the whole class virtually. I think there's 26 conservatives out of 460 kids. So I'm so concerned with big tech and the power. I went to an artificial intelligence meeting. We need to have the best and the brightest working for our government.
Yeah. This is a very big question. So the threat of big tech and our First Amendment and civil rights and how they're being curtailed. Yeah, I feel for you. My son just started college 2 weeks ago in California, so and he's a conservative, so I can relate. I think we have the evidence now. We have the videos from inside Google. We have the great work that's being done by Veritas, O'Keefe's covert filming of people who are admitting to what they're doing against the conservatives simply because of political reasons. Again, we must be happy warriors. Ronald Reagan taught us, we must be optimists, we must be happy warriors. And there are some easy fixes. For what Twitter and Facebook is doing to us right now, there are some very easy fixes. they have been shielded from libel since the get-go because they are treated as social media information platforms, not as publications. Well, when you go up there and you call me, you call the president, you call Sarah Huckabee Sanders a white supremacist, a racist, or whatever, that's libel. That's libel. Why should Twitter and Facebook be shielded from that? There's a super easy fix. You don't even have to break them up like the baby dolls. You simply say, you are now a publishing company like Simon Schuster, and you are subject to libel laws. And if you don't control what's going on your platforms, the lying, the deception, the rank attacks, you, Twitter, will be held responsible. So if Capitol Hill wants to fix it, it can be fixed very easily. And you know what? After the Kavanaugh hearings, it might just happen. What's the obstacle to them doing the right thing? I'll tell you what it is. Okay, first, yeah, it's all obvious. If you live in reality, it's obvious. I mean, think about it. The American economy has never been this big. Ever. Ever. It's never been this powerful. We've never had unemployment this low for African Americans or for Hispanics. Ever. So who's the racist? Who's the racist? Right? Obama, who had double the number of people on welfare? Sounds like it to me. And you can be a racist if you're not white. Right? It's possible. I mean, look what's happening to Asians at Harvard. It's not just about the African Americans. You can be racist against any skin color. So why isn't the communication being done? Think of the last 2 years, right now. How many people have the president's back on Capitol Hill? Get out a piece of paper and write down the list, because you'll be done after about 8 names. You'll have Devin Nunes, Matt Gaetz, Lee Zeldin, Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows, David Brat, and I pretty much exhausted the list. We have hundreds of people on Capitol Hill with the letter R behind their name. Hundreds. And we can't get 10 to support the man who has created an engine of growth in this nation that is historic in its proportions. It's an indictment. Now, why is that the case? You asked why. I'll tell you why. Because until the Kavanaugh hearings, which truly I think are going to be historic, remember, Andrew Breitbart was a liberal until the Clarence Thomas hearings, when he saw, what is it called, a high-tech lynching of an African American of just impeccable character. He saw Clarence Thomas metaphorically lynched by the Democrats, and Andrew Breitbart became conservative and created Breitbart. I mean, think of the unintended consequences for us, in a good way, of the last 12 days. How many Andrew Breitbarts have the Democrats created as a result of the Kavanaugh hearings? Why are we where we are today? Because until that moment, until that godly man was vilified and attacked, and I mean Judge Kavanaugh, the GOP establishment, and I saw this in the White House, wanted the praise of the left. When I was in the White House, Stephen Miller gave one of the best press conferences in modern history on the immigration policies of the Trump administration, during which he destroyed Jim Acosta. He literally destroyed him. Because Jim Acosta showed his own internal racism. Because he asked Miller, so you're going to make language requirements on immigrants, blah, blah, blah. Well, English, really, I mean, so that means only Brits and Canadians can become Americans? And Miller, I mean, there's a couple of rules in life. One of them is never get involved in a land war in Asia. Okay? Secondly, never argue immigration policy with Stephen Miller. Ever. And Stephen Miller responds to Jim Acosta. Jim. I'm shocked at your innate racism. You do know that 63 nations in the world speak English. from India on down. So, are you being racist against Indians, Jim? I mean, he just crushed this stupid little snowflake, okay, for his arrogance and inbred racism. Afterwards, I was high-fiving with Stephen, you know, in the corridor. Man, that was epic. But you know what I heard from other colleagues in the White House for 2 weeks? Did you see Miller and Acosta? Oh my gosh, what did he do to CNN and Acosta? What? These are the people who want to destroy the administration. And you want their approval? I had a very strange reputation in the White House. They called me the weird one because I refused to talk to the Washington Post, the New York Times, or any of these bozos. I wouldn't talk to them on the record, I wouldn't talk to them off the record. And they treated me like some weirdo. And I had to explain to them, why would I? Why would I? They are political hacks. I mean, the charitable word is political activists. Why would I help them destroy the man and the agenda that I have put my name and my sacred honor to? The GOP establishment still, maybe it's changing after the cabinet hearings, wants the approval of the leftist hacks. And that's why they behave the way they do. And why? Because they're scared, because they're, in most cases, cowards. I mean, look at Flake. Flake is a coward. He is just a coward. Any man who admits, I would not have done what I'm doing right now if I was up for re-election, has just admitted he is a yellow-bellied coward. And what the GOP needs to understand in the next 30 days, and they need to understand it now, is Donald J. Trump won despite the Republican Party, not thanks to the Republican Party. And that's why he's so dangerous, because he doesn't owe any of these vile swamp creatures anything, whether they're Democrats, whether they're establishment, GOP, cowards. He owes them nothing, and he is not beholden to any of them. And that's why we must support Donald J. Trump. Good. It's more than that. It's much more than that. You want to know why we are where we are? Why we had a government that recently would say a teenage boy can use the girls' changing room if he thinks he's a girl? I mean, you know what? How we get to that level of insanity? It's very easy. It's not to do with urban versus rural. So it's us. It's our fault. If you want to know why it happened, look in the mirror. In 1968, the Western civilization was on fire. If you look at the streets of Paris, literally, it was on fire. And we had people in America who thought, wow, this is cool. We need to have a socialist, communist revolution in America. Now, most people forget this or have no idea this ever happened. But people who were white and privileged, such as Bernardine Dohrn-Billets, decided we must turn America communist. They took over the SDS, the Students for Democratic Society. They tried to initiate the Days of Rage in Chicago to put the streets on fire like in Paris. And they even created a terrorist organization. My field is counterterrorism. I find it stunning that most Americans today have no idea that white, privileged Americans in the 1970s detonated improvised explosive devices at the Pentagon and the State Department. I'm not talking about jihadis. I'm not talking about fascists. I'm talking about white communists in America detonating bombs. Now what happened? Nothing, right? Days of Rage fizzled out. Weather Underground, terrorist organization, never had more than 12 members running from one safe house in San Francisco to another. It was a joke, it was pathetic, because we're Americans. We love our freedom. This is the land of, the small block V8 and the 20-ounce steak, right? We're going to create communism here. But when they failed, what did they do? They didn't surrender. They didn't go back to being poets or living off daddy's trust fund. What did they do? They became high school teachers and tenured professors in Chicago. And what did we do? What did we do? We let them. We let them. So that's why today you have, sustainability, gender studies, anti-imperialism, all these absurd degrees that have no relevance to real life. And the mantra that everything that is bad comes from America, and we are the new empire. From Zinn, when Zinn becomes the historian for academia, don't be surprised that Michael Moore's popular, or Bernie Sanders gets kids screaming at him saying how cool he is. Think about it, when you're a kid, you look at someone like Bernie Sanders who can't even comb his hair, he's laughable, he's laughable. But we allowed them for 40 years to do what? Literally brainwash our children. Bernard Dornbillers had read their Hitler, because remember, Hitler's party was called the National Socialist German Workers' Party. It's not right-wing. He and Mussolini were actually former socialists. Mussolini was a hardcore communist. When Bernard Dornbillers failed to ignite a revolution, they went back to Hitler, they went back to Karl Marx, they went back to Lenin and Trotsky. And what had they taught the radicals? Give me their children and I will own their future. And we let them. That's why the homeschool movement exists. I love the homeschool movement, but it exists as a way to isolate American children from the insanity, but it's tiny. I love Hillsdale, I love Grove City, but apart from these bastions of normalcy, you cannot, when you deem Shakespeare to be an oppressive imperialist because he's white and dead, this is the greatest author in human history. I don't care what culture you come from, nobody touches the Bard, and now you can go through and get an English degree without ever studying Shakespeare. It literally insanity. So how did it happen? I'm sorry, we let them do it to us.
Thank you.
What's the solution? The solution is about the next 40 years. It's about supporting Charlie Kirk at Turning Point USA, who's going onto the campuses, pushing back on insanity. It's supporting Hillsdale, supporting Grove City, and the other. This is not blowing smoke. It's you on social media. It's you at the water cooler saying to somebody who's talking about the president's bigotry and anti-Semitism. It's you saying, "Hey, you do know the president's grandchildren are Jewish, right? You do know that for 23 years, every president has been lying about their promise to move the embassy to Jerusalem and recognize Jerusalem." Think about this insanity. 23 years ago, the American president, then Bill Clinton, said, "We're going to recognize Jerusalem with the embassy." For the next 23 years, and this is like an SNL skit. Every 6 months, the president, whoever it was, had to sign a waiver saying, "Not now." That's 46 times! We didn't keep our promise. And then along comes Donald Trump. And what does he do? This is, I can't tell you who told me, but a member of the cabinet shared this with me. I've got to share with you. When Donald Trump said, "We're doing it, we are doing it. I'm going to recognize Jerusalem as the eternal capital, the eternal state of Israel, and I'm moving the embassy." Only 3 members of his administration supported him. 3. Even some who have rather tough reputations. Everybody else said, "No, don't do it, Mr. President. You're going to cause World War III. Every embassy in the world is going to be lit alight and ablaze." But you know what Donald J. Trump, our 45th president, did? He said, "I promised the American people I'm going to do this. I promised our best friends in the Middle East, the people of Israel, I'm going to do this. Oh, and by the way, it's the right thing to do. And he did it. That's why we owe him our support, and that's who he is.
Thank you, Sebastian, so much. We appreciate it, and we'll all agree to pardon me, and we'll go do a book signing now.
Let's do it.
And those of you that didn't get to ask your questions in here, hopefully you can have a chance to ask them